COPS, Central Organization of Police Specialists. That's right, they actually put the word police in the acronym for COPS. Brilliant. COPS was an 80s cartoon based off of a toy line. Shocking, right? Specifically, it was based on Hasbro's Cops and Crooks action figures. I still have a bunch of them, and looking back, they were pretty great figures. I'm amazed at how articulate and posable they are. They even have wrist joints. With most action figures, you're lucky if you get a knee joint. So in 1988, DiC produced a TV show, and man, check this out! It's the crime-fighting police force of the future, baby!
It's crime fighting time.
Boy, what a lie that intro is. Well, mostly. You'll see. The year is 2020 and crime is running rampant all over Empire City. To try and put a stop to it, the mayor gets the assistance from FBI agent Baldwin Vess, or as fans have come to call him, Officer Lawrence Fishburne. Seriously, look. However, even his expertise are no match and he gets severely injured. He's forced to undergo an operation that replaces pretty much his whole torso with cybernetics, a la RoboCop, but his new prosthetics make him impervious to bullets, giving him the nickname Bulletproof. So in order to fight Empire City's crime wave, he puts together a police force consisting of the best crime fighters from all over the country. And of course, they all get cool nicknames. First up, there's Longarm, who's called that because he uses a handcuff launcher that probably wouldn't be practical at all in real life. Also, of all the characters on the cop side, we seem to see him the most. We even meet his family a few times. So you know what that means. Yep, they're constantly getting in trouble. You'd think that the family of an officer would know to stay out of trouble, but, you know, plot convenience. There's Barricade, whose weapon of choice is a pneumatic battering ram, because that's way more practical than a gun. There's the rookie, Hardtop, who usually comes through when they need him. There's also an adorable little subplot about him having a crush on a news reporter. And I feel way more invested in this than most other romantic subplots I've seen, but I'm not going to get into that again. There's Bullseye, the helicopter pilot, Highway, the self-centered biker cop, Sundown, the cowboy, because why not? Sergeant Mace, who's a shoot first and ask questions later type of guy.
His fellow officers have given him the code name Mace. His methods are sometimes out of the ordinary, but always effective.
He should not be allowed to have a gun. Bowser, the canine officer, and his awesome robot dog, Blitz. And finally, we have our two female officers, Mainframe, the tech expert, and Mirage, the undercover disguise expert. They don't see a lot of field action because, you know, it's dangerous out there. They can get hurt. Now for the bad guys. We have the crime lord Big Boss, who's kind of like the Kingpin with the head of Edward G. Robinson.
Well, next time, Berserko, steal money, not bananas, eh? Where's the loot, you dog-faced robot?
All right, French guy, where's all that dough?
Kinda funny, though sometimes the impression goes a little too over the top.
Imagine the possibilities! Thousands of fans at a rock concert. Helpless, ready to be robbed.
He also has an assistant named Squeaky Clean. I don't know what's up with that name, but weird names seem to be a theme for the crooks. For example, this guy's name is Turbo Two-Tone. I have no idea what that means. There's Big Boss's dim-witted nephew, Berserko. We will talk more about Berserko later. Next we have Da! Oh my god, what is wrong with your face? She looks like she got into a fight with Thor and took a hit from Mjolnir. Ugh. Anyway, this is Misdemeanor. Get it? She's apparently got super strength, but it rarely came up in the series. There's the criminal mastermind Dr. Bad Vibes, who is clearly the arch nemesis of Dr. Feelgood. He has a glass dome over his brain. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to have your brain exposed to the sun all day, but I won't question it. After all, he is a doctor. Then there's
The Crusher!
Rock Crusher, who's really good at crushing rocks. I guess it's true what they say, everyone has a talent. Mine is making fun of cartoons that nobody's heard of. Oh, thank God, a female crook that doesn't look like a goblin. This is Nightshade, the jewel thief. And finally, the crook with the best name ever, Buttons McBoom-Boom. Yeah, he's got a silly name, but he also has the best weapon. A torso-mounted, double-barrel machine gun under his coat. They'll never see that coming. He's also probably the most intimidating of all the crooks, but sadly the antics this show plays kinda snuffs that out.
Well, who asked you anyway? I'm off to capture that girl.
Wait! How about a little kiss first, baby?
I am not that kind of girl.
That's about it for the main cast. Most of the other characters from the toy line show up in much later episodes, but they're not really worth getting into. Some of them barely even spoke. But there is one I want to mention. Checkpoint, the military officer. He's barely in the show, but it's not what he does, but who he is that's interesting. On the ID card from the back of his action figure package, which I couldn't find a good picture of, his real name is Wayne R. Sneeden III, and it says that his father was also a military officer in the 80s and 90s. Hardcore fans of G.I. Joe know Wayne Sneeden is the real name of Beachhead, meaning that Cops is supposed to be canon with G.I. Joe. Although I do wonder what happened to Wayne Sneeden II. Some people say it's just an inside reference, but I think it makes sense. Both properties belong to Hasbro, and Cops was made by DiC shortly before they took over for G.I. Joe. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's canon. It's interesting how you can connect almost anything to G.I. Joe. Remember that show Mask? In the early 90s, Hasbro acquired Kenner, the company that made the toys for Mask, and as part of the 2007 25th anniversary G.I. Joe figures, they made a figure of the leader of Mask, Matt Tracker. So now that's canon. Then there's all those crossovers with Transformers and Street Fighter, apparently? Wow. My childhood was one vast Tarantino-esque interlocking universe. Awesome!
I'm the big boss. Stay tuned, you hear? Fighting crime in the future. Back to Cops.
Anyway, you could probably guess how this show works. The bad guys commit a robbery or something, and the cops go and catch them. Repeat about 64 more times. It's pretty simple, but there's where a lot of the problems with this show come from. Because the show relies on a regular cast of crooks, you gotta wonder how they keep getting away, and even getting out of jail. They're constantly being caught, and yet they keep showing up. They've even rounded up pretty much the entire gang a few times, and then they just show up in the next episode like nothing happened. I'm assuming Big Boss just has enough influence to keep getting them out, but then why don't they just go after him? For a while, I didn't even think the cops knew who he was. All he did was sit behind his desk giving orders, rarely going anywhere else, and he's always referred to as the vague name Big Boss. I seriously thought that's how it was, and that would have been a good angle. But sadly, it's not true. Later on, he's seen out of his office more, and it's even established that he's a public figure. So, why don't they go get him? Do they not know where his office building is? I find that hard to believe. He's always at the top floor of this big building sitting at his desk. You mean to tell me Bullseye has never spotted his fat ass through that big window from his helicopter? And it's not like he'd be hard to take in either. Apparently his mom can get the best of him.
Mama,
Yes, Cupcake?
could I have my hookums?
I took that pig from you for a good reason, Boo-Boo. You're a big boy now. You have to learn to live without pookums.
But, Mama, what's it gonna hurt? I love that pig.
I know, sweetie. But you're a grown man, much too old for stuffed toys.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things in this show that bother me too, like their vehicles. They look well protected, but how the hell do they see out of those things? Then there's the character design. The action figures were distinguished by their costumes and accessories, and mostly the characters in the show are too, but when they're just hanging out, some of them are very hard to tell apart. I seriously kept confusing Hardtop, Highway, and Bullseye. They all look like the same generic brown-haired guy. It's kind of creepy. I also have to question the logic of some of the crimes the crooks pull off. There's one episode where Dr. Bad Vibes creates an army of toy robots for kids to buy so they can steal valuables. That's pretty low, but how much did all this cost? You really gonna spend thousands of dollars on this just to steal a few $100 in jewelry? They keep building all this crap for the most ridiculous plans ever. How does this crime organization stay funded? Does the economy improve in 2020? Well, at least that's good to know. Now don't get me wrong, I don't hate this show, I just tend to overthink things a lot. It's a bit of a curse. There are things about this show I did really like. For example, each episode opens up like it's a real cop show.
The Case of the Crime Circus. Cops File 55302. A major Empire City bank vault was torn apart and robbed by some unexplainable force. This was no ordinary heist. Not by a long shot.
I also like that they use actual bullets. If this is the future G.I. Joe world, I guess they figured out lasers aren't very reliable. The main problem with this show is that it's 65 episodes long. I sat through all of them, and with that many episodes, you're bound to run into some stupid stuff. Hey, you know what makes good filler for a show like this? An episode about an unfrozen caveman. Yeah, you know, cops. After careful analysis, I've concluded that there are two kinds of cops episodes. The first kind are the ones that are actually watchable or at least okay. Sometimes involving a kid or someone's personal life or an actual decent crime. Things like that. There's an episode that involves a corrupt politician that creates these robot cops to arrest people they see as criminals.
You have been found guilty of illegal parking. Sentence, 4 years in jail. A patrol wagon will arrive within 10 minutes to transport you to the nearest jail. Jaywalking. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, 5 years hard labor. Crime, speeding. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, life imprisonment.
Jesus! Judge Dredd was never that harsh! Speaking of robot cops, there's another episode where Big Boss tries to replace Bulletproof with a robot imposter. The best part is the cops figure out he's a fake because he didn't say his catchphrase. It's crime fighting time.
The real action is coming down on the west side at Pier 12. Get on it.
Get on it? Aren't you forgetting to say something, sir?
Something we always say when it's time to do our job?
How dare you question my authority? Now get going before I suspend the lot of you!
Something's wrong. Bulletproof would never say that.
Do they really need him to say that every time?
Aren't you forgetting to say something, sir?
Something we always say when it's time to do our job?
Come on, Bulletproof, you know we can't do anything until you say it.
It's crime fighting time!
Yeah! Let's go get him! Probably the best story arc was about Mace and Nightshade developing a relationship, with him trying to get her to go straight. Sadly, only about 2 random episodes were dedicated to this. One of the better episodes was about Bowser and Blitz. I thought that Blitz was just a robot, but apparently he's a cyborg. He was a real dog who got hurt saving someone's life, and they had to put him back together. And in this episode, Bowser might lose him for good. I actually felt bad for him. That's pretty hard to say about a Deke show. There's also a 2-parter where Big Boss's gang kidnaps the president and hijacks an aircraft carrier. Those are crimes on a federal scale. You'd think they'd have the Secret Service all over this one, but they're portrayed as bumbling fools. Yeah, screw the Secret Service. We need the cops for this one. At this point, you could probably guess what the second kind of Cops episodes is. The completely stupid but greatly entertaining ones. Usually involving some crazy or over-the-top scheme, like creating a totally 80s, even though it's the future, rock band to commit crimes. There's an episode where some astronauts bring a space crystal to Earth. Yeah, by the way, Empire City has its own space program. So Big Boss's goons disguise themselves as aliens to try and get it.
Hi there, Earthlings! We're spaced out! No, you idiot! We're from outer space! Oh yeah! I mean, we're from outer space!
Unfortunately, they're not all great. There's an episode about a small crook disguised as a baby, and as you can guess, there are a lot of puns.
Sorry, ma'am. It's a little police business.
That was a big mistake, big guy.
Tough luck, Long Arm. But you can't let the little things get you down.
Ha 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 ha! Get it? By the way, I turned off the punch gag. I'm not really sure why I have that. Then there's another episode about a crook that can control bugs.
Don't bug me, little man.
Let's go before that bug makes a monkey out of us.
Okay, that's enough.
Snug as a bug in a rug.
Stop it!
Hope your jet copter can keep up with my plane. It's got 2 million hornets under the hood.
Ah! Ah! Oh! Oh! Somehow that makes it better. Yeah, there are a few groaners, but I'll admit I got a few genuine laughs out of some of these episodes.
What are you doing, Squiggy? Don't pull! Push! Yike! Polar bear! Where are you going? Squiggy! Come back! Come back! Ah!
Remember when I said we'd talk about Berserko later? Well, now for probably the best overall episode, Berserko's Big Surprise. So it's the Big Boss's birthday, and Squeaky tells Berserko to buy stuff for the party. But instead of buying what they need, he keeps the money for himself and steals it all. Which involves stealing onion dip from a factory by hanging from the ceiling, stealing a cake from a bakery and running off with it on stilts, and probably best of all, buying masks from a party store just to put them on, go back in, and rob the place. Yeah.
A criminal genius. That's what I am.
Then he uses a giant balloon he stole from the party store to try and steal a bridge for Big Boss's birthday present.
Who steals a bridge?
What do you do with it?
How?
Oh man, why didn't they give Berserko more of his own episodes? And give him that shirt that his action figure wore. Someone ought to make that shirt. So that's most of what you can expect from this show, but let's close off with probably the most infamous episode. The Case of the Lowest Crime. The Drugs episode. Yeah, this was during the war on drugs, and it was a show about law enforcement, so naturally there'd be a drugs episode. This not at all subtle drug dealer named Addictum is selling a drug called Crystal Twist, which is some kind of star that you put on your forehead and absorb it or something.
Ha! Straight to the brain.
Anyway, he tries to strike a deal with Big Boss, but it doesn't go so well.
Not so fast. What exactly are you selling?
This, Diamond Dreams, Emerald Ecstasy, Crystal Twist, the shimmering, sparkling vision of paradise itself.
You mean drugs?
In a word, yes. Do we have a deal?
In a word, no.
Hey!
Shut up! In my time, I've committed many crimes. I want to make money in the worst way. But drugs are where I draw the line, creep. Drugs kill.
Yeah, because your men never committed attempted murder. So he respectfully declines.
And just for the record, don't let me catch any of you lame brains messing with drugs.
Yeah, no drugs. Everything else we do is okay, but no drugs. They kill.
Aw, come on, Uncle. I may be a lame brain, but I ain't stupid.
Unfortunately, during a robbery, Berserko accidentally falls into a crate full of Crystal Twist and gets a major overdose. No, not Berserko! He was the best character! After having a genuine moment seeing his nephew in the hospital, Big Boss decides to team up with the cops and hunt down Addictum. And hunt him down they do.
For his crimes, Addictum was sentenced to life imprisonment.
Life in jail? Okay, I know drug dealing is a serious crime, but life? You'd get maybe, what, 10 years, 20 years, plus rehab maybe? Then again, they really did try and hammer in the drugs are bad message.
That's not Crystal Twist, son. You've just committed a crime. Afraid you'd better come along with me. These addicts are unpredictable. Poor kid. Once you were a man. Now you're just a mess.
I think they're trying to tell us something. You know, I gotta admit, with all the flaws this show has, I was surprised at how much I still enjoyed watching it. The average episodes were okay, and the silly episodes were pretty entertaining. It's a pretty easy series to find, too. I got the entire series on DVD for a total of about $5. Berserko's big surprise alone made it worth every penny. I don't recommend marathoning this show because it's too long, but it might be worth checking out. And I think this is a series that could make a comeback. There's enough here to work with, and it is a Hasbro property. With the umpteenth version of G.I. Joe and Transformers, and as great as they've been, maybe it's time they give one of their other properties a chance. So that's Cops, and hey, next up is my 50th review. Wow. That's a big deal for a low-budget internet show that nobody watches. I gotta review something special, but what? Let's consult the wall of DVDs. Of course!
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Nobody now give you no break. Police now give you no break.
You can't steal a fridge. It's impossible.
You talk talking to the guy who just stole the world's largest balloon!